Hi folks, this is Karim Rao from IT Visualizer channel. Today we'll continue our lab, Mass Effect lab. We have been discussing in the previous video an introduction about what we will do in this lab. This was the following. We have been discussing in the introduction what is a BitLocker. Okay, is a BitLocker? It is a way that you can protect your data on your workstation or on your laptop, especially if you are working with a laptop or a mobile computer. So if you have a laptop and you work at your office and do a lot of work, and then you take your laptop and complete your work at home, then you are there is a possibility that your laptop may be lost, or maybe robbed, or may be lost at most, or at optimistic cases maybe it is lost, or maybe it is robbed by a thief. So simply, if it is robbed, the hacker or the thief can easily crack your Windows password, and then he will log into your workstation or laptop and rob your data, or copy your data, or compromise your work data and your personal data. So BitLocker, it is an option in Windows. You just only right click the partition and tell him to enable BitLocker. So if you do this for both partitions, if this is your laptop and you have two partitions, so you just right click every partition of them and tell him to enable the BitLocker, which is a way to secure your data by encrypting your two partitions. What I mean by encryption, after this option is enabled, you will have your data encrypted. Okay, so no one will be able to open your partitions and see your data unless he has the encryption key. So what you will do, you will just right click your partition and tell him to enable BitLocker on it. Then after that, something like a lock icon will appear on both partitions. Okay, you are the only one that can be able to unlock this lock or to decrypt this encryption. You will have the encryption key. So after you enable this option, the Windows will give you an encryption key. You should be your encryption key or password should be saved in a safe place, and then after that you can work normally without any problems. And if you lost your computer or your laptop, the robber or the thief needs to if he needs to open your partitions, he needs to provide your encryption key or your password to unlock the partitions and to decrypt your partitions and to access your data. So this is the most important on why most organizations implement the BitLocker. Okay, so we have discussed what is a BitLocker, and then we will use it in a wide range. We will use it in our domain. So we have, for example, 100 or 200 PCs. We need to install the BitLocker on them all. So to do this, we need to make a group policy and implement it on all of the 100 or 200 PCs in our domain environment. Okay, and also we have discussed that the group policy, it is a way that you can control what the user see in his Windows, what he can see from the setting of the Windows, from the programs of the Windows. So you can literally, with the group policy, control everything on the Windows for any user in the domain. Okay, so through the group policy, we will enable the BitLocker on all of our PCs. Okay, and we'll encrypt all of the hard disk of our PCs in our domain through using the group policy. But as we have said before, this process it's a little bit complicated, and after you enable the encryption, you need to go to every PC and save the encryption key. Okay, and you don't have a way to monitor the encryption process, so you need to go to see by your own eyes every PC if the encryption is done or not. And as I said before, you need to also find a way to save all of the encryption keys for all PCs. And if you need to, even if after you complete the encryption process and you have saved the encryption keys, you don't have reports. Okay, so you need to have an instant report, or you need to have a physical report or a written report with the process. Okay, so the MBAM, it's a utility that Microsoft provides for you to automate and administer and monitor the whole process of the BitLocker. So the MBAM will encrypt all of the PCs for you. It will save all of the encryption keys for you for all of the PCs. It will issue reports so you can see which PC is encrypted or not, the status of the encryption, the status of the BitLocker process, the recovery agents. It will give you also a report for the recovery agents. And not only that, this is also used to be a support tool. For example, if one of your users have lost his encryption key, so he doesn't need to go to you to issue a new encryption key. He can access the website, so we'll make an internal website for the MBAM, so the user can type the website of MBAM and then go and answer a couple of questions to verify that he is the user, or he is authorized to have an encryption or a new encryption key, and then the MBAM will give him a new encryption key. So this also will give you less support effort. So the MBAM is not only a utility to administer the whole process of the BitLocker and to issue reports about the process of the BitLocker, but also it is a support or a small automated support tool that can provide support for the BitLocker process, like for example the loss of the encryption key, the issuing of new encryption keys, or the recovering of old encryption keys, the recovery agents, and a lot of things. So the MBAM, we will it's like a utility that it is we will put it on a server, and this MBAM will be a centralized location and a centralized software to control the whole process of the BitLocker, and it's very organized. It will give you detailed reports. It will save the encryption keys for you in its database, so you will have an MBAM database. It will save in it the encryption keys, the status of all of the PCs in your domain, their BitLocker process or status. All of this will be done through this utility, and it will be recorded in a database, and this database you can run from it different reports to verify the complete complacency or the process of the BitLocker, how much it is implemented in your environment. Okay, and we have this. We have said that we have a story of the mass effect. In all of my labs I have a story to put in it our different IT perspectives or IT concepts. So it will be something like interesting to continue with the lab and continue working with the lab, okay, to make it more friendly and more excited, to have a scenario, an excited scenario from an excited movie, for example, or excited famous game or something. So we put our IT scenarios inside a very excited story from famous movies or famous games. Okay, so Mass Effect is a famous game, and I encourage you all to see the website for Mass Effect and see the story I have discussed before in this, or in introduction, the story of Mass Effect. And then we will begin our scenario. We will first make a domain controller. First of all, we need to make a domain, and you will name it Mass Effect, and then in this domain we will make a first domain controller, and then we will begin creating different users, groups, and computer objects in the Active Directory, and we'll make an Active Directory user login script. So every user who accesses the domain, he will have some steps implemented on him. We will discuss this when this comes, but this was briefly what we have done in the introduction. So in this video we'll begin discussing first, we can get it from the start. First of all, we need to see first, let me show you something. First of all, I need to discuss something. What is a computer network, or why we have a computer network? Just if you can give me a moment, I have a small graph here. So here, there it is. Okay, no, this is not the one. I think it is. Let me show you all here. Okay, just a moment. So here we will have just a moment. Just a moment, here we go. This is the Hyper-V Mass Effect. No, this is not it. We have another thing for, yes, the network. Just a moment. So here we need to discuss an important concept. First of all, if you need to have a computers, or you need to have a network between computers. Okay, what should you do first? Let's begin from the start. First of all, why do we make computer networks, or why we put computers and join them or make them in one network? Okay, so basically, why do we make networks between computers? First of all, we make networks between computers to share the resources of each computer to the other ones. For example, if you have, for example, here is your PC and there is your brother, for example, and your family. Every one of your family has a PC, and every one of them has his documents and has his photos and has his pictures, so we need to share them with the other PCs. So by putting them on one network, you can share your photos on your computer to your father's computer, your mother's computer, and so on, and vice versa. Okay, so we are making computer networks to share resources between different computers, for example, like documents and photos and something. And also, if you have a problem, for example, on your father's laptop or your father's PC, and you need to work on it from your PC, then this is also one reason why you need to make network between different PCs. Okay, so we make network between PCs to share resources between them, to share programs between them. Okay, so this is and to be able to communicate between them. For example, here from your PC, if you have you can send messages. For example, if you can send text messages from your PC to your father's PC, for example, you can send him messages, you can talk to him through your PC. So this is other way you can share folders and folders and documents and programs, and send messages and so on. So this is why we make computer networks. Okay, so how we can do this? Simply, you get a computer, and each computer will have a network card. This network card, it's a way that or it is the responsible device that will be able to communicate to the other PCs. So every PC will have a network card. This network card will enable the PC to communicate with the other PCs. Okay, it's something like the telephone. If you need to talk to someone, you need to hang off the phone, or talk to the phone, or open the phone, or open your cell phone and begin talking. So the network card is like the phone. If you need to talk to other PCs, you need to use your network card. So these PCs, every one of them will have a network card, and then to make them all in one network, we need to put a cable in every network card. So every network card will be installed or will be on every PC, and this network card contains a port. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 ports. From every port we will take a cable, a network cable, and then we'll put it in a switch. Okay, so the switch, it is a way, or it is the device that will make them communicate, or the PCs communicate with them all, and put them or make them share resources between them. So the switch, it is a device that we use to combine or to make computers share resources and talk to each other. Okay, so we will have a network card. So we have here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cards, and we will have from every card there is a port. From this port we will take a cable and put it in the switch in another port. So we have here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cards with 5 cables in 5 ports in the switch. Okay, so now is this enough? So if you do this, now you have all of them. You can share resources and you can make them talk to each other, and now they are on one network. No, we have still another thing to do. We need to have a unique number, or to give a unique number for every PC on a network, or to join a group of PCs, or to make them on one network and share resources. You need to have, every PC need to have a unique number, something like the ID or your identification card. So every PC need to have a unique number that is different from the other one. So again, we will have PCs which have network cards so they can talk to each other. Then we will have a network card. Okay, we say the network card for every one of them, and we need to have a cable installed from this port or this network other port, and then we put it on a switch on another port in the switch. So we have done this. We have given them unique numbers. Every PC should have a unique number that is different than the other one, so they can be able to talk to each other. Okay, So if this is enough, now we have all of them having cables inserted in the switch. We have all of them having unique numbers or unique IPs, we can say this, or IP address. So if this is enough, they can now share and talk to each other. No, we need to make sure that these unique numbers or these IP addresses are in the same network range. What we mean by the same network range, we can have it on a small example here. Let me identify this, or let me make it more clear here in this example. For example, here we can see that you have a building. Let's say this is building 15/2. Okay, you have here your apartment 5 and your apartment 10. So when you tell someone to come to see you, he will go to building 15/2 apartment 5. So this is your whole, or this is your address. It's building 15/2 apartment 5. This is if you are living in flat 5. If you are living in flat 10, then it is building 15/2 flat 10. So let's now change the building 15/2 to a network range. It's 10.0.1.0/24. First of all, I need also to clarify something. The people living in apartment 5 can talk to people living in apartment 10 because they are in the same building. Okay, so for example, if there is another one in another building like 15/4 apartment 5, he will not able to talk to you. He need to goes out of the building and then come and talk to you. But because you are neighbors here in the same building, so apartment 5 can talk to apartment 10. So here let's change 15/2 and put instead of it the network address 10.0.1.0/24. Okay, so instead of a building, or instead of apartment 5, we will give him 5. So he will have an address 10.0.1.5. Okay, so instead of apartment 5, we will have 10.0.1.5. Okay, so your full address will be, you are on subnet 10.0.1.0/24 and your apartment will be 10.0.1.5. so instead of apartment 5, it will be 10.0.1.5. so this is your apartment name, and your building will be 10.0.1.0/24. okay, so this is if you are living in flat 5. What about flat 10? Flat 10 will be 10.0.1.10 and your building will be 10.0.1.0/24. so let's say it in brief. Here 10.0.1.5 can talk to 10.0.1.10 because they are in the same building, which is here 10.0.1.0/24. okay, so what I mean by the same range, so these two flats have a unique number, okay, or a unique flat number, and they are in the same building. So what we say here, that although they have unique numbers, this is apartment with a different number than the departments here. This is the or this is apartment 10 and this apartment 5, but they are living in the same building, which is 10.0.1. okay, so this is what we can say. For example, here if we go to another building, we can see here, for example, that 10.0.3.10 can't talk to 10.0.1.10 because this is in a different building. okay, it is in a different building. 10.0.3.10 can talk to 10.0.3.5 because they are in the same building, which is 10.0.3.0/24. okay, so this is what we mean by we need to have them in the same range. okay, so here again what we will say, let's revise what we have said. okay, so here if we want to make a network between our computers, we need to have computers first, and we have network card installed on them. So this network cards, it is the way that they can be able to communicate with each other. Then we have in this network cards port. From this port we will insert a cable, and then we will put the other end of the cable in a switch. okay, this switch will be able, or this switch will be the responsible device to link them all, or to make them communicate with them all. okay, so we have the cards, we have the cables, we have given them unique numbers or unique IDs, and these numbers are in the same network range. okay, so now If this is enough, now we can have a network, or now we can begin sharing things between the PCs. No, still we have another, or the last thing to do, but before that we need to have a small issue here. For example, if this server needs to, or this server which is 10.0.2.8 needs to talk to 10.0.2.5, how they will communicate? Here we have a small graph, so I will show you all. First of all, every network card, okay, will have a unique number. So we have two things unique in the PC: the IP and the MAC address. Okay, the network card will have a unique number which is called MAC address, and the PC, as we will discuss in a couple of seconds, will have a unique number which is called IP address. So every PC will have two unique numbers. One is the IP address and one is the MAC address. Okay, so when this PC needs to talk to this PC, okay, the switch knows the MAC address of this PC, so he will take it and put it in his or save it on him, okay, in his memory or something like this. Okay, and he will also take the MAC address of this PC and save it in his memory. Okay, so he knows that this PC have a MAC address of, for example, 1, and this one is having a MAC address of 2. So when this PC wants to talk to this PC, he knows that, okay, that this PC have a MAC address, so he will check the MAC address. So this PC will tell him my MAC address is so, and he save it, and this will tell him his MAC address and he will save it, and then when this PC wants to talk to this, he will talk to him by the MAC address. He will tell him I need to talk to the MAC address of 1, for example. So the switch knows, after inserting a cable in its port, he knows the MAC addresses of each PC, so he will talk directly to the MAC address that he needs. For example, this MAC address is 1 and this MAC address is 2. So MAC address 1 wants to talk to MAC address 2. The switch knows the MAC addresses, and he will directly or instantaneously link them to each other and make them talk to each other. Okay, let's see this in a graph. Here we have our switch. Okay, this is the switch, and then we have here the ports, or let's see, here we have here, for example, 1 2 3 4 5 6 ports. All of them are connected to the PCs by cables. So when they are connected, okay, the switch takes the MAC address of each PC and put it in a table. So for example, port 1, we have PC 10.0.2.8 is connected on it, and its MAC address is so he will put, or he will know that port 1 have a MAC address of this PC of, for example, 1, and then we will do this the same for all of the other PCs. Okay, and then when, for example, this PC wants to talk to this PC, so he will check the MAC address of this PC and this PC. Okay, and he will direct them, or he will link them directly. So this PC wants to talk to this PC, so he will talk to it by the MAC address. So here data directed only to the intended port. For example, if this PC wants to this PC, so the switch knows the MAC address of this PC and knows the MAC address of this PC, so he will connect them right away. Okay, so this is the way, or this is the way that the switch will let PCs communicate with each other. Okay, so by the way, this is a very good website. It's called PowerCert Videos. It has a YouTube channel. I encourage you all to see it. It contains very lovely concepts and discuss everything. So this is from PowerCert Videos YouTube channel. Okay, so as I said before, it will first, no cables are connected to the switch from the PCs, and then after the cables are connected and PCs are powered on, the switch will take the MAC addresses of the network cards and put them in a table, and every MAC address to its correspondent port, or its correspondent PC port connected to it. Okay, so and then at the end, if anyone wants to talk to other PC, they will talk with the MAC address. Okay, so this is basically the process of the communication of the switch. So now we have said, if you want to make a network between PCs, we need to have PCs with network cards and with cables attached from the network cards to switch. Okay, this is first thing to do, and then we need to give every PC a unique number which is called IP address, and this IP address should be in the same network range. Okay, and then we have the last step to implement, which to put them or group them in two types of groups. Okay, so now we have what we have done here. We have connected them, okay, to a switch. We have given them unique IDs or unique IP addresses, and they have unique MAC addresses. Until now, these computers are not grouped yet. Okay, now they are. They have IPs, they have unique IDs, they have unique MAC addresses, but until now they are not grouped together. Okay, they can communicate with each other. With each other, but in the physical layer. What I mean by physical layer, this still PCs doesn't have any operating system installed on them. So after install the operating system should know that, or every operating system on every PC should know that they are all in the same or they are all linked or in one network. So to do this, we need to tell the operating system to group them. So we have two kinds of grouping when it concerns the operating system. We can group computers in a domain, or we can put them in a worker group. Okay, so what is the difference? Okay, here we can see that this is our scenario. We have, for example, laptops, and we have a switch. Okay, and they are all, the network cards have a cable from them, and they are connected to a switch. So all of these PCs are connected to each other through a switch. Okay, here we can see that in computer networking, a worker group is a collection of computers connected on a LAN that share the common resources and responsibilities. Worker group is Microsoft term for a peer-to-peer local area network. What is the advantages and disadvantages, or what is the description of a worker group? All computers are peers. No computer has control over the other computer. Each computer has a set of user accounts. So every computer will have user accounts on it that these users only use. For example, if you have a user account on this PC, so you can use this PC. You can't use your user here on this PC on another computer. You need to go to the other computer and create a user so you can be able to use this computer. So to work on each computer, you need to make a user account on each computer. You can't use one user here on one computer and use this user on all of the other computers. So this user can't access the other PCs in a work group situation. You need if you need to access every computer, you need to make one user here and one user there and one user here and one user there. So you need to repeat the same user 5 times. You have a process, or here we have a repeated process. So for example, if user is Karim, you need to make user Karim here on PC A, and you need to make user Karim on PC B, and then you make computer user Karim on PC D, and so on. So we make Karim user 5 times on 5 different PCs. Okay, so this is a repeated process, and this is consuming a lot of users or a lot of resources. Okay, to use any computer group, you must have an account on that computer. There are typically no more than 10 to 20 computers, so you can put from 10 to 20 computers in a work group situation. Okay, each computer controls his computer security and environment, backgrounds, and Windows settings. So every computer is responsible for his Windows setting and his users, and so on. So I am responsible here for deleting and creating my users on this PC, and the user here, there is another user responsible for creating and deleting the users on this PC. So for example, the user responsible for creating and deleting users on this PC can't delete users and groups on this PC, for example. So everyone is responsible for his PC. So it's a decentralized situation. We all share resources, but everyone is responsible for his PC, for his users on his PC, for his resources on his PC. Okay, so this is typically can be done when you have 10 to 20 computers. Okay, this is called worker group. As for the second kind of grouping, we call it domain. Okay, here we have a centralized solution, or a more centralized solution. In Active Directory terms, A domain is an area of network organized by a single authentication database. In other words, an Active Directory domain is essentially a logical grouping of objects on a network. Okay, so here you are logically grouping computers. Okay, domains are created so IT teams can establish administrative boundaries between different network entities. So here we make a domain and group different computers this domain, but the difference between a worker group and a domain that here you can centralize the administration on all PCs. For example, we have said here that if you need to access this PC, you need to create a user here, and you need, if you need to access this computer, you need to make another user here. So if I am Karim, I need to create Karim user 5 times on the 5 PCs when there is a work group situation. In a domain, I need only to create Karim user 1 time, and then I can log in to all of these PCs with the same user. Okay, so this is one of the benefits. Okay, let's see here. One or more computers are servers. Okay, network administrators use servers to control the security and permissions and Windows setting and environment for all computers in the domain. So here I can create one user that can access all of the computers in the domain, and I can control all of the Windows setting on all of the PCs in my domain from my server or from one centralized location. For example, here if I need to change the Windows setting from this PC, I need to log in here and change the setting. Okay, and if I need to change the setting here, I need to log in here again and change the setting, and so and so. So I need to repeat the process 5 times. Every time I log in here and change the setting, for example the background of the Windows, and then I go to the PC, this PC, and then log in and then change the background. So I do the process 5 times. In a domain we can do this once on all of the PCs. Okay, so we can change, for example, the background for all of the PCs in the domain by one step, and we can create a user that access all the PCs in the domain by one step. Okay, so what we can say here, that security and permissions and Windows setting and environment all computers on the domain, this makes easy to change changes because the changes are automatically made to all computers. Just a moment, guys. So let's continue, guys. Here we say that network administrators use servers to control the security and permissions and Windows setting and environment for all computers in the domain. So here we will have one PC that will control all of the PCs and resources. So if, for example, we have 100 PCs, so this one PC will control the Windows setting and everything on the other 100 PC. This is different than the work group. Everyone controls his own PC. Okay, so now if you have a user account on the domain, you can log on to any computer on the domain without needing to an account on that computer. As we said before, we need to create here on every computer a user account, so can you be able to log in on this PC. But in the domain you only create it once on the server, and then you can able to log in on this workstation, this laptop, and so and so. So there can be hundreds or thousands of computers. The computers can be on different local networks. Due to increased security and manageability in a domain environment, TechRon always recommends implementing, or Techs always recommend implementing a domain environment for their clients or for our clients. Okay, so now let's revise what we have said, or just to recap what we were saying. Okay, here we have said, let me give it here. If we need to make a network between computers, we need to have computers that have network card installed on them, and every network card will have a port. From this port we'll insert a cable and put it in a switch. This switch will be able to link them all so they can be able to communicate with each other. Not only this, we need to give every PC a unique ID, which is an IP address, and this IP address or these IP addresses should be all in the same network range. We have seen this, or we have discussed it, and at the end we have discussed how the switch will link these PCs together through the network card MAC address and the port, associated port. So every MAC address will be linked or will be according to a port, and the switch will know which PC will talk to which PC through the MAC address. So now we have put or have cables to the switch, we have linked them, we have put IP addresses. Now from the same edge, now we need to group them to be in an active directory or in a work group. That depends upon the number of PCs and the situation that you need your environment to be. For example, work group is recommended from 10 to 20 PCs. You can put them in a work group, but if you need or you have more than 20 PCs, then you have or you should work with a domain solution. Okay, so making network to a computer, you need computers, linking them to or putting them all on one switch. Okay, and then grouping them according or grouping them so the operating system, every one of the PCs can know that they are grouped according to a logical grouping, I mean according to an active directory or a work group situation. Okay, so these are the two things or I need to discuss with you all before going further or before beginning talking about our lab scenario. Here what we will do, here we will use a program called Hyper-V. This is a program that it is responsible for creating virtual machines, not all virtual machines and virtual networks and everything. So this is a program that will simulate PCs and different network situations. Okay, or it's mainly we use it to create virtual machines. Okay, so how we can install this, or this comes, Hyper-V comes with every Windows 10 operating system, especially Enterprise and Pro. You can install it from let's see here, from control panel, and then add remove programs, and then we will need to tell him turn off features, and then we need to click on this Hyper-V and OK, and then he will install the program. Okay, so this is simply how we can install the program of Hyper-V, and then we will use it to create our virtual machines and putting them in virtual networks and begin sharing and working our or beginning processing our lab. So first we need to remember that if we need to group or we need to link computers or a couple of computers and share resources between them all, we need to put them on a switch. Okay, so you need to take this very or take a note with it. You need to have computers and you need to link them all or to put them all on one switch. Okay, so here what we will do, we will install the Hyper-V, and then we will begin creating what we call a virtual switch. Okay, what we mean by a virtual switch here, first of all, how we can create a virtual switch. Here we will go, this is the Hyper-V. After we have installed, we will go to virtual switch manager, and then we will tell him to create a virtual switch. Okay, first of all we need to know that there is just a minute here, I need just to read what I am doing here. Okay, so here we have a couple of types of switches. Okay, here we have something called external switch, we have something called internal switch, we have something called private switch. So when you open the Hyper-V program and then begin creating switch, a virtual switch, while we are creating a virtual switch, so we can, as the graph says here, we can link any virtual machine, or if we create a couple of virtual machines, we need to link them all or put them all in one, or we need to link them all or make all of our virtual machines talk to each other and share their resources. We need to put them all on one switch. So when we open the Hyper-V, we need to create a switch. We have three types of switch. Okay, first of all we have something called external virtual switch. So here this is the virtual switch. We will have for example virtual machines on this virtual switch. So let's consider this network cards to be ports on the virtual switch, and we will have from this virtual ports cables, and these cables are attached to computers or attached to virtual computers or virtual machines. So here we have 1 2 3 4 5 6. These are 6 virtual machines are connecting to this virtual switch with virtual cables. Okay, So the external virtual switch will enable these virtual machines to communicate with each other. This is first thing. And then to communicate, first of all we need to have something to say. The virtual machines, we will call it guest. Okay, so when we put these virtual machines on this external virtual switch, they will be able to communicate with each other and share resources with each other, and they will share resources and talk to the host. What is the host? This is the physical machine that we have Hyper-V installed on it. Okay, and from this program Hyper-V will begin creating our virtual switch and our virtual machines. So the physical machine or the host can talk to the virtual machines through this external virtual switch. So the external virtual switch will enable virtual machines to talk to each other after they are linked to it, or after they are linked to it or put on it through using virtual cables. So let's consider that these are virtual machines with virtual cables installed or linked to this virtual switch on its virtual ports. Okay, so by doing this we enable all of the virtual machines to communicate with each other and share resources, and to communicate with the host or with the physical machine that we have the Hyper-V program installed on it, which through it we will create our virtual environment. Okay, so the external switch will make virtual machines communicate with each other and communicate with the host, and they can get to the internet. Okay, so the external switch will enable virtual machines to communicate with each other and to communicate with the host or with the physical machine. This physical machine, okay, will have a virtual cable, and we will put it on a virtual port on this switch. Okay, so here the physical machine will be connected to this virtual switch, let's say with a virtual cable. So here this port is connected to the physical machine and the others are for the virtual machines. So all the virtual machines can talk to each other and can talk to the host through using this port. Okay, so this is the external switch. You can, or you make virtual machines or guests talk to each other and talk to the host, okay, through using this port. Okay, and they can get to the internet. This is one type of switch, and this is the internal switch. It is the same like the external switch. You can you put the virtual machines on this virtual switch so they can talk to each other, so the guest can talk to each other and can talk to the host from this port. So this physical or this host have a virtual cable connected to this virtual port on this virtual switch. So the difference between the external switch and the internal switch, both are the same, except that the external switch can get the virtual machines and the host to the internet. As for this, they can only communicate with each other and with the host, but they can't get to the internet. This is the difference between the external switch and the internal switch. As for the private switch, it only enables the guests or the virtual machines to talk to each other, but they can't talk to the physical machine or the host. Why we need the virtual machines to talk to the physical machine, or why we need the guest to talk to the host? For example, if you have some documents you need to put it in your virtual machines, so you need to have a communication between the physical machine and the virtual machine, or between the host and between the guest. So we have three types of switches. We have external switch, it will enable virtual machines to talk to each other and to the physical machine, or to make the guest talk to the host, and then they can get to the internet. And the internal switch, it will make the guest or the virtual machines talk to each other and talk to the host, which is the physical machine, so the guest can talk to the host but no internet. And for the private, you can make virtual machines talk to each other, but you will not talk to the physical machine or the host. Okay, so we can also have a little bit of a graph here. Will clarify also more. Here you can see that this is my laptop, and here I have my Hyper-V program, and this is the Hyper-V virtual environment. Here we will create a domain. We will have two servers or two virtual servers they will have IP addresses 10.0.1.20 and 10.0.1.21. we will put them on, or we will link them together through connecting them to an Hyper-V internal switch, and it will have a name. This internal switch will be DC internal switch. So internal switch, they can talk to each other and talk to my laptop, but no internet access. So you can see here that these two virtual machines are linked or are put on the internal virtual switch, and my laptop also is connected to this switch. So these two machines can talk to each other through the switch, and my laptop can talk also to these two virtual machines because he is connected to the same switch. Okay, so this first, it will be virtual machine will be a domain controller. We will have Active Directory and DNS and Wins and group policy management. Install of them. We will discuss this one by one. I will discuss it in a couple of minutes coming. And then the other one, we will have MBAM, or we have the software of Microsoft BitLocker administration and monitoring tool will be installed on this server. So this server will not be a domain controller, it will be a normal, or a virtual machine will be a normal machine that have Windows Server 2019 installed on it, and we will only install Microsoft MBAM software on it. Okay, so this will only be an MBAM server. Okay, so this is simply what we will do, and we need also to have a little bit of a graph also. Maybe it will discuss more, or we need just to make it more clear here from another graph. For example, here we can see that here is my laptop. This is the name of my laptop. Okay, and this is the network card of my laptop. Okay, my laptop have, for example, 4 processors, and we have 8 GB of RAM. So I will take, for every virtual machine, I will take one of these 4 processors and a bunch or a part of the 8 GB RAM and create 2 virtual machines. Okay, this will be the first domain controller, and this will be a MBAM server. So this server, it's 10.0.1.20. It will be linked to this switch on this virtual port. So this is the virtual machine. Okay, the domain controller connected to the virtual switch on the virtual port. This is an internal switch. Okay, so this is one, and the other MBAM server is installed or linked or connected to this internal switch through this virtual port. Okay, and it will have the IP of 10.0.1.21. so these two are linked to this switch or connected to this switch through virtual cables and virtual ports. Okay, and this is a virtual port. My laptop is connected to it. Okay, so I can, through this port and linking myself to this internal switch, I can be able to communicate as a host to the guest, or as a physical machine to the virtual machines. Okay, so this is what we can say about Hyper-V and the types of switches in the Hyper-V and how we will begin the process. So now the first thing we do, we will create an internal switch, and then we will begin according to this graph. First of all, what we will do, we need to create, first thing we will install the Hyper-V program, and then we will create an internal switch, and I have shown you all how we can do this. We will go from this option, virtual switch, and create an internal switch and name it, okay, DC internal switch, and then we will begin creating our virtual machines. Okay, so this basically what we will do. We will install the Hyper-V program, or we'll make it, or we will add this feature to the Windows, and then we will create an internal switch, and then we will begin creating our virtual machines. Okay, so this is basically what we will do. So let's begin the lab. Here we will begin our video. So here, this is our Hyper-V, and then we will create a new virtual machine, and then we will name it. Okay, you will name this virtual machine as EDIMF01. Okay, and then here is telling us we can get a little bit further here. We will name it. And then he is asking about the type of virtual machine. There is two types of virtual machine, generation 1 and generation 2. Generation 1 it's for supports both operating system 32-bit system and 64-bit system, okay? And here he says that is available in all previous versions of Hyper-V. As for generation 2, it supports new virtualization features, okay, and it's only supporting 64-bit system. So if you need to install 32-bit or 64-bit, you need to use generation 1, and if you need to install only 64-bit and UEFI firmware, not MBR for example, you can use the generation 2. Anyway, we will use generation 1. This is will not do any problems, and is compatible with all of the operating system and all of the systems we will install, okay? So we'll use it, and then here we will specify 2 GB of RAM for this virtual machine. Here we will choose use dynamic memory for this virtual machine. What we mean by using dynamic memory, here I am specifying, or I am taking 2 GB of RAM for this virtual machine. My total RAM is 8 GB. I am taking 2 of them to this virtual machine. By clicking on this option, if this virtual machine needs more than 2 GB of RAM, for example, if the processes or the activity on the virtual machine demand more RAM, it will take it from the available RAM, remaining available RAM. For example, here I have 8 GB of RAM. For example, my operating system use 2 GB of RAM, so I have 6 remaining. I give 2, so I have remaining of 4. So if these 2 have ended, he will take from the remaining available unused RAM of 4 GB, okay? So by using dynamic memory, you are telling the Hyper-V to use any available memory if there is available, and to take them automatically. How much he will take? As much as this virtual machine processes need, or as much as this virtual machine needs. For example, if it's 2 GB of RAM and it needs 1, it will take from the 1 GB of RAM. If it needs the 4, it will take all of the 4. Okay, so this is using dynamic memory for this virtual machine. I prefer to leave it if you have, or to check it if you have a lot of memory. But if you're working in a production environment, you need to be very careful using this one, because if you have a lot of virtual machines, you need to specify every virtual machine to have a specific amount of RAM. So if, for example, a Trojan or any miscellaneous activity happens and it pushes the virtual machine to use more resources, so you will be in a big trouble. Anyway, you need to specify it or to uncheck it in a production environment, but if in our lab, we can use it without any problems. And here we will connect this virtual machine to our internal switch. So we have created an internal switch. We name it DC internal switch, and we will put our first virtual machine on it, okay? And then here we will choose, okay, he will put this virtual machine. So now he will create the virtual machine, and we create a hard disk for this virtual machine. We will specify the hard disk to be 200 GB, and this is the location of the hard disk, okay? And then we will insert, or we tell him to install the operating system later, so we need to insert the ISO image that contains the operating system. Okay, so now you right click and check the setting of this virtual machine, and we go to integration services and check guest services. This is a very important service we need to check, because this will enable or will make the integration between our host and our guest more efficient. Okay, so if I need to share something from my laptop to this virtual machine, the guest service will help me to do this. Okay, so we need to check this from the integration services, the guest services. Okay, and then I will add another network adapter. So this virtual machine will have a network adapter. As I said before, this enables us, or this enables the workstation or the PC to communicate with other PCs. We will add another network card. So this virtual machine will have 2 network cards. Why we have 2 network cards? Because we will do something called teaming. What we mean by teaming? We will combine these 2 network cards to act as one network card. Why we are doing this? Because, for example, if one of them fail, okay, for example, this will be a domain controller, so all of our PCs and users that will need to join the domain or access the domain, it will access it through this server or this domain controller. So for any reason, if one or if the network card failed, all of the users and computers will not be able to access the domain. So here we are putting 2 network cards as a team. Okay, so if one of them fails, the other will continue working, and the connection or the network connection to the server or to the domain controller will not be down. Okay, someone tell me, okay, you can put 2 network cards, okay, and not team them, and if one of them fail, you can simply take the cable or take the cable from the faulty network card and put it in the working one. Okay, if you want to do this, this will take a lot of time. You need first to take off the cable and put it in the working network card and put the IP address of the server on the newly network card or on the working network card, because the users and computers will not be able to access the domain unless it has, or unless the PC has a unique IP. Okay, so to do this it will take a lot of time, okay, or it will take some time until everything is up and running. But when you are making a network teaming, these 2 network cards, okay, will have the same IP address. Okay, so if one of them failed, okay, the other will work, and you don't need to unplug. Of course we will have 2 cables put in these 2 network cards, okay, but if one of them failed, you don't need to go to the other network card and put the IP address again. Okay, so basically you make a network teaming between 2 network cards to make redundancy, or to ensure that if one of them fails, the network connection to the server or the domain controller will not be down. Okay, so we will put another network card and we'll put it on the same switch. So the first network card, if you remember from the graph, is connected with a cable to the switch. So the second network card will have a cable and connected to the same switch. And then we need to insert the ISO image here for the Windows Server 2019. Sometimes there is an error. I will show you all when this happens. Here I am choosing the this is the Windows Server 2019 image or ISO image. We will click connect and then start the virtual machine. So now we will tell him next, and then we need to install. We will choose Windows Server 2019 Data Center. Sometimes there is an error that will appear. I will show you all this error. Here we will choose Data Center. Okay, but sometimes an error will appear like this one. Okay, cannot find the software license. So if this error happens, you need to go first we need to power off the virtual machine and eject the ISO image. So I'll show you all this in a moment. We will turn off the virtual machine, and then you will go to the setting of this virtual machine or to the media and then to the DVD and eject the ISO image and then start the virtual machine again without the ISO image, and then take 2 or 3 minutes and then power it off again, and then insert the Windows install ISO image and then power it on again. So now we have power off, so we now have power on the virtual machine without the Windows Server 2019 ISO image mounted or attached. So now it will not see any CD, so it will not boot from any system. It doesn't have anything installed on the hard disk, so it will still stand in this black screen. So now what we will do, we will turn off the virtual machine, and then we will again insert the DVD, and then start. So now we have the operating system. We will have two partitions, C and D. I prefer to make the partition more, or C, the one that will have the operating system on it. We need to have it more than 100 gigabyte, at least to be 150. If it is a server, we need to have more space for the operating system. And another partition will be D. In our case, we have 200 gigabyte of hard disk. We will have 100 for the C partition or the operating system partition, and for the D partition or for the data, we'll have it 100 gigabyte, and we install Windows Server 2019 data center. We will accept the license agreement, tell him custom installation, and then we will choose to partition the hard disk for 2 partitions. Okay, and then we will make another partition. Okay, one will be about 100 gigabyte and the other for 100, and then we will format the second partition as NTFS, and then we will choose the second partition to install the operating system on this partition. And then the first thing to do, he needs the license key. I will give it later. Here is this, the local administrator account. When you install any Windows operating system, you will have by default a user created on this operating system. Any Windows operating system, it is named, or a default user account named as administrator. This administrator will have full rights on the Windows operating system. As a best practice, you need to give a password for this administrator account, and you need to change the username from administrator to any other name. So you need to give it a strong password, and you need to change the username from administrator to any other name. Why? Because most of hackers know that the operating system of Windows will have a default username by administrator, and most of the users doesn't give it a strong password. So to stop or to block this, or to block the hackers from attempting to hack your system, you need to put for the administrator password or the administrator username a strong password, and you change the username of the administrator to any other thing. For example, here we have our username administrator. You can rename it, for example, Karim, and give it a strong password. And much more secure also to disable this account once and for all, or to disable it and create another user which have the same privileges on the Windows. As I said before, the username administrator will have full control over the Windows operating system. Okay, so you need to create another user that will have the same rights. We need to have another user that will have full control on the Windows operating system. Anyway, I will show you the process, but this is the best practice. You need to change the username from administrator to any other one and give it a strong password. think we can just pass it real quickly. Anyway, so now here we need to change a couple of things in this server setting. We need first to enable the remote desktop. By enabling this option, we enable, or we are enabling to access this server remotely. For example, if you are in a domain and you have, for example, a PC, let me here a little bit, okay. By enabling remote desktop connection, by enabling this option, I can access this server from outside of my office. For example, if I am at a remote place and I need to access my server from it, then enabling this option will enable me to access this server from outside my office or from outside my work environment, okay. But we here need to make sure that allow remote connections to this PC or this computer to be chosen, and you need to check this option, allow connections only from computers running remote desktop with network authentication level. So we will allow remote connection to this server or remote desktop connection to this server, but to a certain type of users or a certain group of users, okay. So this group of users need to be authenticated or need to be verified that they have access to this server. I will give them access to this server. I will give a certain group a remote access to my server. There is a group called remote users. If you put users in it, so you are giving them the right to access this server from outside. So for example, in the remote users group, if I put Karim in the remote users group, then I am enabling him to access the server from outside. So this is why we need to choose, or we need to check allow connections only from computers running remote desktop with network level authentication, okay. So in this need, or this user will not access unless he have authenticated, and by authentication, there is he is in a group that it is authenticated and given the right to access this server from outside. Can tell him select users and check it, and then we will change the computer name to the name of the server. It will be EDMF01. ED, it is the name of the artificial intelligence of the Normandy ship, and MF, it is an abbreviation of mainframe, and 01, okay. And then we need to make network teaming between the two network cards. As I said before, this is to ensure that if one of the network cards failed, the whole connection to or the network connection to the domain controller, which will be a domain controller, will not fall, okay, or will not fail. So here we will choose NIC teaming. And after teaming these two connections, okay, or these two network cards, we'll have only one network connection for the two network cards. Normally, if you have two network cards, we'll have two network connections, a network connection for every network card. But after teaming these two network cards, they will have one network connection. So if you put one IP, the IP for this network connection, it will be done, or it will be put on both network cards. So here we will choose them and tell him to network team, and then we will tell him to name this teaming. And as we can see here that the speed is 10 gigabyte or 10 gigabytes. A problem here that on Hyper-V the speed is more than VMware. So if you need to make teaming on the VMware between two network connections or two network cards, it will be only 1 gigabyte. As for the Hyper-V, it's more speedy. Anyway, it will be done using a teaming mode called switch independent and a loading balance called address hash. You need to just take note. You don't need to understand what this do, but it will not work in a virtual environment, especially in Hyper-V, if you use other options than switch independent for the teaming mode and address hash for the loading balance. Okay, so now we have them teamed and active, and then we need to restart. Okay, so the name of the server or the PC will be changed and the teaming will be effective. Okay, we can do this. Now what I will do here, I will just change the resolution of the screen just to be as full screen, and we'll have the icon of this PC and control panel and user files and other different icons to be in front of my eyes or to appear on the desktop, so we can access everything in this PC or this virtual machine from these icons. Anyway, we can do this. Just a minute. So here we can see that I have gone to personalize. Just a moment. Go to display setting, and then we change the display to the resolution of my laptop screen, and we tell him to keep changes. And then we need to go to the display setting. This is the one that we have changed the resolution, and then we need to access personalize. Okay, to have icons like this PC and control panel and everything. Just here we can go to the themes. Okay, display personalize and then themes. Okay, and then we go to the desktop icons. Okay, so again here themes, desktop icons, and then we will have the computers and users and control panel and network, all of them to appear on my desktop. And then we will make a restart, and after the restart we need to give this PC or this server or this PC that will be, or this server that will be a domain controller, we need to give it an IP address. Okay, and take note that my laptop also have an IP address, and they are all, or my host and my guest are on the same network range, or they are in the same network range. Okay, so I can share things between my host and guest, or my physical laptop and my virtual server. I think we can just pause it real quickly. So here what I will do, just a moment, here we can see that I am typing an IP address. This is the IP of my physical laptop. Okay, I have an IP of 10.0.1.100, so this is my laptop or my host IP address. Why I access my laptop? So I need to get some files from my host or my physical laptop to this virtual machine, but still you need to remember that my virtual machine doesn't have an IP address yet. So the virtual machine, this virtual machine will have an IP address of 10.0.1.20. so after putting an IP address I can access my host from my guest here. Okay, so just wait for a moment. Here I can't access it because this machine doesn't have an IP address yet. Here I just need to show you all something here maybe. I forgot to say, but this can be one good thing to say. Just a moment. Here we can go to the collection, and we can go to the here, and we go to the Hyper-V, and here we can see a little bit of some things to be saying. We have said that okay, the types of switches, external or internal, and external is the type of switch to bound so and so. Anyway, I think we don't need to discuss it anyway, so let's continue. So external switch in Hyper-V goes to the internet and link all of the host and the guest together. The internal link the host and the guest together but with no internet access. The private switch link the host the guest together but not with the host. Okay, so here we will go to the network connection for the two network adapters that are teamed together. So here we will go and give it an IP address, okay, and then properties, and then we use the following. Here we will have 10.0.1.20, and then T255. This is a subnet mask, and then we'll tell him okay, close, and then we will begin here installing the Active Directory user and computer, or Active Directory user and computers domain services, or Active Directory domain services. So by installing this, and we will be able to promote this machine to be a domain controller. So we can, after promoting it, we will create our domain Mass Effect, and this will be the first domain controller in the Mass Effect domain. So here we can see this is the IP address. Here we can see after giving it an IP address, now I can access my host or my laptop. Okay, when I access my host, he will ask for a username and the password that it is authenticated or it is authorized to access the laptop. So here I'm gonna give him my username that I have created on my laptop, so I can give him access to my laptop resources or my laptop documents. Okay, there is no direct way that you can link the host and the guest in the Hyper-V environment. This is done in the VM Workstation Pro automatically. Okay, he maps a network drive from the host to the guest, or we will link or map a network drive, or make a network drive that is on the host, or he will have documents and make them add a map network drive to the guest operating system. Anyway, now I have access my laptop and get my folder of scripts that I will work with it, the entire lab. So this is the IP of my laptop. Here I will install a couple of programs. Here I will install Classic Shell. It is something that will change the start menu of the Windows Server 2019 to be more like Windows 7 start menu, and I will install 7-zip. It's a program or a free software that compress and decompress files. Okay, here we can see that we can do this anyway. Just a moment. So here we can do something else. Just a moment. Just give me another moment. Okay, this is the 7-zip. Okay, but need to do something else. okay, no, just a moment here. Okay, no, just a moment here again. No. Okay, just a moment. So here we will copy the 7-zip, okay, and then we will copy, or we have something else. It's a couple of group policy templates. As I said before, group policy, it is a way that you can, from with a central or a centralized tool. The group policy is a centralized way or a centralized tool that you can control the whole Windows environment that will appear for all of the users in all of the PCs in the domain. Okay, so here I have a bunch of group policies. Okay, a template, group policy templates. By the way, the group policy by default it can control the Windows environment only, but you can download some group policy templates that can control not only Windows but Windows, Firefox, Google Chrome, and other bunches of software. Okay, so here I have a group of policy templates, for the Windows and for the Firefox and for a lot of things, okay, or a lot of programs. I have this group policy templates saved. I will take them and add them to my default group policy location. So by default, the Active Directory will have the group policy, or will have his group policy in which location? In a folder named C Windows System32, I think, group policy or policy definitions. So this is the location that the Active Directory put its group policy. Okay, and as I said before, the group policy will control the Windows only. So in this folder I will copy my group policy templates and put them in this folder. So by putting them in this folder, the location C Windows policy definitions will contain group policies for Windows and other programs, and from this I can control not only the Windows and other programs. Okay, just not get confused. We will see that in a moment in a practical way when we begin working with the group policy. But you need to know that the group policy location, okay, it is in C Windows I think System32 policy definitions. This is where the group policies of Windows located, and this is where the Active Directory have the group policy, that through it he can control all of the Windows setting and features for all of the users in the domain, all of the users that access computers in the domain. Okay, so here we will have, said before, here the group policy templates. So here I'm just copying the group policy templates. So here I think I installed the classic shell, or first I will install the 7-zip. This is a program for compressing and decompressing files, and then the classic shell, it's a program for changing the start menu shape of Windows Server 2019 to be more like Windows 7 startup menu. So install the classic shell. So here we will close. Here first we will add roles and features. We will add the Active Directory domain services, and then we will choose do not start server manager automatically, because the server manager this program or server manager takes a lot of RAM, or processing from the RAM, so I prefer it to be don't start up automatically. Here you can see that the IP address of the server is not correct, so I need to restart the server just to clarify or just to change this setting. It's not 169 point, so it's 10.0.1.20, so we will restart the server just to make sure that the correct IP address is reflected. Here we have a setting in this classic shell. When I right click the start menu, I need to have the right click options appearing, okay, something like this one. Okay, so here I will restart the server, continue, and then we will Control Alt Delete. This is an icon that will simulate a Control Alt Delete press in the real world, but in a virtual environment it's only one click that makes Control Alt Delete effect. So here we will add the Active Directory domain services. Next. Here is the IP address, correct IP address. It's 10.0.1.20, and then we'll add Active Directory domain services and add features. Next. And then next. And then we'll tell him to install. It will take a couple of minutes, and then we need to promote this server to be a domain controller. So we promote this to be a domain controller. So here we need to first, we have three options: something, add a domain controller to an existing domain, add a new domain to an existing forest, add a new forest. So here we don't have we don't have a domain. Okay, so we will choose the first one. We tell him to add a new forest. So this option you need to select if you are creating a domain for the first time, or you don't have any domains and you are creating your first domain. So you need to choose the add a new forest. Okay, you won't, if you can use the second option if you have already a domain and you need to create a child domain or another domain. So you'll have two domains. This will be used if you are creating the second domain. Okay, and the third one, if you need to create in the domain two domain controllers. For example, if you have in this domain one domain controller and you need to add another one, so you can choose this one. Okay, so this one, if you are creating a new domain for the first time and a new domain controller, this will be your first option. The second option, if you need to create a second domain after you have created your first domain, a second domain. Okay, and the third one, if you need to create a second domain controller in the same domain. Okay, so here we will give it a name. We will give the domain here a name of MEU. It's abbreviation of Mass Effect Universe, MEU .local. So here we will give it a name, add a new forest, and then in root domain here we'll tell him MEU.local. Okay, and here we have a couple of options. We need to talk about them. First of all, what is a DNS? Here is telling you a DNS. First of all, something called forest function level, domain function level. What is a forest function level and what is a domain function level? Let me show you all something. I need here, I've just here bookmarked them here for the Chrome. Just a moment here. So here, what is a forest function level and what is a domain function level? Okay, Active Directory function levels are controls that specify which advanced Active Directory domain features can be used in enterprise domain. For example, here, if you have in the domain, okay, you have domain controllers with different operating systems. For example, if you have a domain controller which has Windows Server 2008 and you have another domain controller with Windows Server 2012 and another one with Windows Server 2016. Okay, so if I told him here the forest function level Windows Server 2016, here I am telling him that I will not accept any domain controller having any operating system unless it is Windows Server 2016. Okay, so here you are limiting, or you are telling him that all domain controllers should have Windows Server 2016 installed on them. Why this? Because if you have a domain controller that has Windows Server 2008, for example, installed on it, some functions of the Active Directory will not be available for him. Okay, because this Active Directory, it is the latest Active Directory, it needs Windows Server 2016 as a system, so all of its features will be available. So if you have Active Directory installed on Windows Server 2008, not all of the features of the Active Directory will appear. Okay, or not all, or if you have a domain controller that have Windows Server 2008 installed on it, so the Active Directory 2016 features will not appear on it. Okay, so with the function level, I am telling him, or I am telling or limiting him to put all of the domain controllers with an operating system on Windows Server 2016. Okay, so let's here is telling him the domain is usually comprised of a domain controller that run all different versions of Windows Server operating system. Administrators use Active Directory to manage computers and so on. So okay, with an Active Directory domain controllers on earlier versions of Windows Server. In a domain with domain controllers that operate on different Windows Server versions, the Active Directory function level is limited to the features available on the AD controller that uses the earliest version of Windows. For example, here is the example. A domain can include domain controllers that run both Windows Server 2008 R2 and Windows Server 2012 R2, but the Active Directory features and functionality in the Windows Server 2002 domain controller will not be able because the domain Active Directory function level would prevent it. For example, if you here make the forest level to be Windows Server 2016 and you have Windows Server 2012 installed on one of your domain controllers, some of the features of this Active Directory installed on the Windows Server 2016 will not appear or will not be implemented on the Windows Server 2012. So with the functional level here, you are telling him, or you are ensuring or limiting him to have certain operating systems installed on the domain controller. Okay, so this is a good one. If you have for example different operating systems for different domain controllers, you need to tune the function level to reflect. For example, if you have 2008, for example, in a domain controller, so you need to tune the function level according to your type of systems installed on the domain controller. So this is very important, the forest function level and the domain function level. So this is here, you can say, as I say here, you need to make sure that your Active Directory or forest function level, it is done in an appropriate way. Okay, this is the function, and the same applies for the domain function level. Here we can say that will make this domain controller a DNS server. We need to know what is a DNS server, so let's explain it more clearly. First of all, as I said before, for these computers to communicate with each other, they need to have a unique number or unique IP address. Okay, so this is the numbers. We can see here it's a little bit complicated. This number consists of 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 digits. So as humans, we don't remember such large numbers. For example, if I are here on my PC 192.168.1.14, I need to talk to this PC. So I need to remember its IP address so I can be able to communicate to it. So this is not available, or this is not this is very hard on the human mind. So the DNS facilitates this for us. What it will do, it every PC will have an IP address and a name. Okay, so the DNS has a table that contains the name of the PC and its IP address. So here, instead of I telling him, or I need to remember the IP, no, I just need to remember the name. So here I'm telling him I need to talk to pcmarvel04.marvel.local. So here I can remember this. This is much more easier to remember. So from here of my from my PC, I will tell, or I will broadcast that I need to communicate with pcmarvel04 marvel.local. So who will take this broadcast? The DNS will take the name of this PC and will see its IP address and return the IP address to me so I can talk to him. Okay, so this is the function or the objective of the DNS server. It will have names of PCs and their correspondent IP addresses. If I need to talk to the PC, I just need to tell the DNS server the name, and he will take the name and change into IP address and return the IP address to me so I can talk to the PC I need to talk to. So this is basically, it is the function of the DNS. And by the way, the name of the PC, the full domain name, it's named or it is consisting of the PC name, it's pcmarvel05, and the domain itself. So for example, we have our domain named meu.local and my PC is named edmf01. So the full name of my PC will be edmf01.meu.local. So the PC name, it's edmf01. The domain name, it's named meu.local. The full domain name of my PC will be the name of my PC plus the domain name, which will be edmf01.meu.local. Okay, so this is the function of DNS. It returns, or it uses the full domain name of the PC, which consists of the PC name and the domain. It will take this name and its correspondent IP address, and when I use this name to communicate to this PC using the same name also, he will return the IP address and give it to me so I can communicate with it. So this is the DNS, the function of the DNS. And then we have something called global catalog. Okay, global catalog, it's simply if you have a lot of domains and domain controllers. Okay, you have child domains, you have domains, and you have a lot of domain controllers. So you need to have one of the domain controllers in all of these domains and domain controllers to be a global catalog. This is a domain controller that will have, or from it have all of the information regarding of all of the domains and domain controllers in your forest or in your environment. For example, if you have a domain and a child domain, or 2 child domains, 3 child domains, and you have 4 child domains, and you need to search for a user in one of these child domains. Okay, so you will have one domain controller that has a catalog, or it will have a book that contains all of the Active Directory objects for all of the child domains and the domains. He can give you the location exactly, or he can help you to search for a certain Active Directory objects in different or in a lot of child domains. Okay, so this is a global catalog. Okay, we can also see it from here. We can have something like a definition for the global catalog. Let me show you all also. A global catalog. See, a global catalog consists of many partitions and naming the distinguished name. Okay. Global catalog holds a replica of every object in the directory, but only no. Then let's see here. Consists of so and so. However, the user does not. The global catalog contains a partial replica of every naming in the directory. It contains the schema and configuration. Anyway, this is, as I said before, allows users to quickly find objects of interest without knowing which what domain holds them, and without requiring a continuous extended namespace in the enterprise. So this is like a telephone book, contains all of the objects in all of the domains and child domains, and the responsible for it will be maybe one domain controller or maybe a lot of domain controllers. And then we'll have something called read-only domain controller. This will be a domain controller but will only be for viewing. You can't change something on it. Okay, so one says to me, why do I need a read-only domain controller? For example, if you have your head office in Belgium, for example, and you need the domain is in Belgium, and you need to have a child domain in Egypt, for example, but you need the administrators in this child domain in Egypt not to make any changes, okay, in this child domain. You will be the only responsible one to do the changes, your head office or your administrators in your head office. So you create a read domain controller. So you create the child domain, and then in this child domain in Egypt you create a read-only domain controller. So the administrators accessing the read-only domain controller in Egypt in the child domain will not be able to do anything. You are the only one will be responsible to change. For example, you make in the child domain in Egypt one normal domain controller, and the other one is a read-only domain controller. They will replicate with each other. Okay, you can change things in the normal domain controller, and the administrators in Egypt will see the changes on the read domain controller, but will not be able, for example, to delete a user, change a user, do anything in the read-only domain controller. This is simply what we mean by read-only domain controller. And at the end we have something called Active Directory Restore Mode password. Okay, what is an Active Directory Restore Mode? Also, this will be another thing we can discuss. Okay, it's called Active Directory Restore Mode, I think. Just a minute. Okay, Active Directory Restore Mode, it's a safe mode boot option for Windows Server domain controllers. Allow administrator to repair or recover something from the Active Directory database. Okay, for example, if you have a user that was created in the Active Directory and it is deleted, or the Active Directory database, by the way, all of the users' computers created in the Active Directory are stored on a database. For example, if or for any need this database is corrupted and your Active Directory is not working anymore, the restore mode will help you to recover and repair this database. So to access this safe mode you need to have a password. Okay, here you will choose the password here on this option. So this is basically what all of the options means. So here we will use it. Next, NetBIOS name. This is the domain. You can have a small abbreviation for the domain. For example, we have the domain, it's called meu.local. You can have a small abbreviation, it's meu. So he's giving you an option to make a small abbreviation for the domain. Instead of typing meu.local as a whole, you can type meu, and it's the same like typing meu.local. And here just we need to have a small thing to discuss before. Here we have three options, something called database folder, log folder, Sysvol folder. Database folder, this is the location of the Active Directory database. In this database, the Active Directory stores all of the Active Directory users, computers, groups, and so it is stored in here. And the log files, this is a file that contains all, or the Active Directory writes all of its activities in this folder. For example, if an Active Directory created a user, it will be created in a log file and it will put in this folder. If the Active Directory deleted a user, this will put in a log file and it will be in this folder. So this is a log folder. Okay, and at the end this is something called Sysvol folder. This is a very important folder. It contains all of the group policies and scripts that will be implemented in the Active Directory domain. So this is a very important folder that contains the group policies that will be applied to the domain and the scripts that will be applied to the users in the Active Directory. So here at the end we can tell him something called view script. After that, all of this choosing of options, you can get this process as a PowerShell script, so you don't need to open, manage, and then begin choosing and going to the same process on different servers. No, this will be done through a script. You just open the PowerShell and run the script. It will do all of the steps that we have done, but through the PowerShell in one step. Okay, so this is good if you have a lot of domain controllers or with the same configuration. Okay. So now we will install. Okay, we will promote this server to be a domain controller. As we can see here that it is already promoted to domain controller. Here is the administrator user for the domain. We need as a best practice to rename this username from administrator to any other name and to give it a strong password, and then to disable it completely and give another user the same rights of this administrator, or to have the same rights of this administrator user. I think here we can just go a little bit quickly. We can go here. Okay, let's what we have did here. Here we'll open the control panel after this server is promoted to be a domain controller. We need to go to the network setting. Just a moment here. No, we need to go a little bit further. Just a moment. So here what I will do something called a custom console. A custom console, it's done by opening the run and then type mmc. What I mean by a custom console, everything the Active Directory has, if you want to configure it, everything in the domain controller. There is a lot of things in the domain controller. There is a DNS console from it, or a DNS window. You can configure a DNS from it. There is another window for the Active Directory users and computers. You can add users and groups from this window, which is called Active Directory Domain Users. There is another window or console for the group policy. You can add group policies. So there is different windows with different consoles. You can configure different things in the domain controller. So let's say that we have 3 consoles with 3 windows. From these 3 windows, one you can configure the DNS, one you can configure the Active Directory users and computers, and the last one you will configure the group policy from it. What if I tell you that you can configure all of them from one window only with one console? This is the function of a custom console. You will have a custom console that will contain all what you need to configure in a domain controller, like DNS, WINS, a group policy, and a lot of things. It will be configured from one window with one console, instead of having a DNS console window and console, and the computer Active Directory users computers Active Directory users the computers windows and console, and group policy windows and console. Okay, this is what we will do by having a custom console. Okay, just a minute. I think here I just forgot to do something. maybe just a minute. Anyway, just a moment. Okay. I think we need to be a little bit quicker. Okay, so we'll click start. Or right click and then run, and then we will type mmc. It will open a blank console. In this console we will add DNS, Wins, Active Directory, users of computers, group policy management. So all of these will be run from one console with one window instead of multiple windows and multiple consoles. So here we will tell him file, add snap in and snap. So here we will add the Active Directory console. We will add the computer management. Anything you need to configure on this domain controller, you can add it from this blank console. We will add the DNS, and we will add the event viewer. If you need event viewer, it is a place you can check errors and activity of the server as a whole from this event viewer. It's something like a log. Okay, the Windows puts all of its activities in it. Okay, concerning Active Directory or non-Active Directory, for example, something related to the hard disk, something related to the RAM, anything related to the Windows activity will be written in this event viewer, or this logbook, we can say this. Then we can add the policy management. Then we can add services. And the first thing we need to do is to create something called, or the first thing to do is to open the DNS and create something called reverse DNS. We all know, as I said before, that the main function of, just a moment here, first we will open the network and sharing, and then we'll open the network connection for the server and change, okay, something in the IP setting. Okay, here we need to change the preferred DNS. This server will act a domain controller as a DNS 127.0.0.1. This is exactly as you type 10.0.1.20. They are acting as the same. So if you type this, it's exactly as you are typing this. But for organizational things, I need to change it to be exactly like this one, 10.0.1.20. So I will change it to 10.0.1.20. So this will be a DNS server and a domain controller. So I said before, after that we will go to the DNS in our custom console and we will create something called reverse DNS. First of all, we need to save this console on our desktop and we will name it Mass Effect Console. So here we name it Mass Effect Console, and then we open our DNS and we will create something called reverse lookup zone, or we'll create something called reverse DNS. What is the reverse DNS? We said the main function of the DNS is to when I give it the name of the PC, it will give me the IP address of the PC, so I can communicate with it, because the human mind easily remember names more than IPs. Okay, the reverse DNS, its function is when I give it the IP, it gives me the name. For example, if for any reason, or it is very rare that you remember the IP of the PC, not the name, and you need to get the name of the PC, so with this reverse DNS you give him the IP of the PC and he returns the name for you. Okay, so this is very rare, but it is there. Okay, so we will go to the DNS. See reverse lookup zone here. Okay, I tell him next, 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 and then he asks about network ID or network range. Okay, so I will give the network range here of my network, which is 10.0.1. remember the building example. So here I told him the network range, and then I have created the reverse DNS. Okay, now I'll add something called think wins. Okay, but just let me remember. Now what I will do, I will create something called Active Directory Group Policy Central Store. Okay, but just wait for a moment. This is the templates. Okay, we will open it again. This is a group of templates that contains not only the Windows group policy, but the Firefox group policy and a lot of policies. Okay, so through this bunch of group policies I can control every aspect that will appear for every user on every PC in the domain. So I can control the Windows, I can control the Firefox, I can control the Chrome, all of these. Okay, but first of all, what we will do, we need to create something called Active Directory Central Store. What is an Active Directory Central Store? Let me show you a small graph talking about this. Active Directory Central Store. Okay, here we can see that the location of the group policy of the Active Directory. We all know that we have in the Active Directory, or through the Active Directory console, we can configure group policies and control what appears for the users in our domain. Okay, from the group policy console. Where is the group policy located exactly? It is located in C Windows policy definitions. Okay, so this is the location. So let's have an example. For example, here you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You have 5 domain controllers. Every domain controller has a different operating system. This is Windows Server 2008, Windows Server 2012, Windows Server 2016, 2003, and the latest one, which is 2019. Every one of them will have its group policy located in C Windows policy definitions. If this is your scenario, you will have a problem, because the group policy in 2008 is different than the group policy in 2012, and different of the group policy in 2016, different than 2003, and of course is different than the 2019. Every one of them, the group policies are different. Okay, so to make them unified, to have them using the latest group policy and from one location, so what we will do, we will tell all of these domain controllers with different operating system to use the group policy located on the Windows Server 2019 to be their domain policy, or to be their group policies. So the Windows Server 2019 will not use his own group policy, he will use the group policy of Windows Server 2019 domain control, and the same applies for every one of them. Why are we doing this? Because the group policies are different according to the operating system. Some are old and some doesn't contain all of the latest group policies. So we will make the latest server, okay, with the latest group policy. The central location, all of these servers will take, or all of these several domain controllers will take their group policy from it and apply it from it. Okay, this is basically what we will do. So we will take a copy. What we will do now, we will take a copy of the group policy on the server 2019, which is in C Windows policy definitions, and put it in the Sysvol folder. Okay, Okay, why are we doing this? Because the domain controllers will access to this folder, so we need to take a copy of the group policy of the Windows Server 2019 domain controller and put it in the Sysvol folder, so the other domain controllers can access it through accessing the Sysvol folder. So the domain controllers will access the group policy of Windows Server 2019 when we put it in the Sysvol folder, because they can't access C Windows policy definitions, which is the default location of the group policies in the domain controller. Okay, so here is some a definition. The group policy central store is the central location to store all the group policy templates. This eliminates the need for admins to load and open group policy templates on systems used to manage group policy. Group policy central store benefits: ensure all admins are using the same group policy template files, loads the same templates from any computer, make it easier to manage and update templates files by having only one location to update, reduce template files in the Sysvol, and reduces replication traffic between domain controllers. So also one benefit, if you need to change a group policy, you need to do it on every one of the domain controllers if you don't have a central group policy store location. So you need to change it here and here and here and here if you don't have a central group policy central store. Okay, so this is also one benefit, and also it will decrease the replication between the domain controllers. One of the benefits of having multiple domain controllers, for example, if this domain controller is down, so the other domain controllers will be a standby, so they can let the users continue accessing the domain resources. So by making the group policy in the Sysvol folder, this will reduce the replication between the domain controllers. This as is said in the website. So what we will do, we will take a copy of this folder on Windows Server 2019 and put it in the Sysvol folder. So this will create the group policy central store, and then we have a bunch of templates or group policy templates for Chrome and other things. We'll take a copy of them and put them in the group policy new location in the Sysvol folder. So we'll see that in a moment. Wait with me. So here, this is the group policy templates. What we will do, we will now create Active Directory central store or group policy central store location. Okay, first of all we need to open the Sysvol folder. Okay, under policies we will put here, or our location of our group policy will be here. Okay, our new group policy location for the Server 2019, or for the main controller for Server 2019. Here we'll copy this one and put it in the Sysvol folder under policies folder. So this will be the new location of the group policy for the domain controller. Okay, and then we will copy our group policy templates and put it in this folder. Okay, here we will go and copy them. I think now I will add the wins. Just a moment. So here now we will copy our group policy templates and put it in the new group policy location, or the new group policy central store location. Okay, so now it's copying it. We can just make it more quickly. Okay, so now what we will do, I think I will add the wins. Okay, but let me first check if I'm already putting the wins role. Okay guys, the Wins is something like the DNS. It was used before the DNS appeared. It does the same function. It's the same function as the DNS. Or it gives you the IP of the PC or the workstation when you give it the name, but not the full domain name, the PC name only. As I said before, the full domain name for the PC will be the name of the PC plus the domain. So if, for example, my server it's edmf01, this is the PC name, and the domain it's meu.local. The full domain name for the PC will be edmf01.meu.local. okay, so the Wins returns only the PC name. So if you give him the IP of the PC, he will return the name of the PC only, not the full domain name. So the Wins was used before the DNS. Microsoft say it is obsolete. Now I'm adding the Wins console to the custom console. So the Wins does the same function as the DNS. It is used for older versions of Windows. It's still used. It does the same function as the DNS, but Microsoft say it's not used anymore, or or there is no use for it. But still, there is some systems or older system of Windows use the Wins instead of the DNS. So I am just putting them, or I just install Wins as a precaution. I think now the video is finished, but let me check. So now we have our custom console. So this video is finished. I hope it's a little bit of a long video, but we have discussed a lot of things. The upcoming video will begin installing the DHCP and other things. Hope this video was informative for you all, and I would like to thank you all for viewing. Thank you so much.